All right. Well, let's take a moment to do a little purification, do a little checking in, do a little setting of our intention. I can share with you that today I had a busy day. It was a good day, but it was busy and full and hectic. And so I noticed in myself that as I was moving around trying to get things ready for tonight's class, that I felt, a little of that, feeling rushed, feeling anxious kind of a thing. And so when I talk about kind of checking in with yourself and seeing what you're carrying, that's a real good example of what it might be, is just sort of the noticing of, oh yeah, I've been in a hurry all day. And so this is a good time to put down that feeling of hurriedness. Or I've been a little worried about this or that. So just by becoming aware, becoming mindful of what it is we're carrying in our hearts and our minds, what it is we're carrying in our bodies, by becoming aware and becoming mindful, we really can release that, and we can start to bring ourselves to a place of peacefulness. So, sharing my experience with you, you can just think about anything that you're carrying that would be helpful to set down for a period of time. And then it's also helpful to think about your intentions for our time together tonight. Certainly there's the meditation that we do together, and that helps us to feel better. There's the Dhamma talk, and there's the dialogue that we have together as a group, and that's very helpful. But it's also helpful to set kind of a grander type of intention, which is that the merit of our practice here tonight can go to the good of all beings. So this is very helpful, because by doing that, we're able to cultivate compassion and loving kindness, appreciative joy, and equanimity. So thinking in this way, may all beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be surrounded by love and kindness. May all beings be equanimous, free, peaceful. And remember what equanimity is. Equanimity is a state of non-attachment, where you're not craving, you're not clinging, there's not a feeling of aversion or disliking or ill will. It's just peaceful balance. So this is really one of the truly most wonderful states of consciousness that we can have. With that, may our efforts tonight cultivate these wonderful states of consciousness, and may it go to the benefit of others as well. And with that, I'll ring the bell. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Namaskar. Well, welcome everyone. We'll take a minute to get ready for meditation, however you'd like to be. Joni, could I ask you to do me a favor and turn on the teapot in the kitchen? I forgot to do that. That way it'll be hot. Nope, that's fine. And if you feel more comfortable, if you have a little more space, you're welcome to move over here if you want, or you can just do it there too. That's fine. Whatever you'd like to do.
Is anybody else going to do it?
A lot of times people do.
Yeah, a lot of times people lay down. I don't know, maybe nobody else tonight, but it's perfectly fine if you do.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. No worries at all. And remember, there are cushions and more mats. There's even blankets if you think you might get chilly or you just want to be covered up. Okay. Great. So yeah, take a minute. Get comfortable in your body. Get comfortable in your chair, or however you're sitting or laying. Look for a little symmetry in the body so that you're not leaning to one side or the other. That way your muscles will be balanced, less fatigue, less conflict in the body. So looking for symmetry helps. You can let your eyes close softly. And we do that to eliminate the visual distractions, just looking at things in the room around us. Helps us to concentrate by closing our eyes. And then you can breathe through your nose if that's comfortable for you. Part of the meditation practice will be working with the breath, so if you can breathe through the nose, that's great. Otherwise, whatever you need to do to breathe comfortably is perfectly fine. And remember, as we go, it is helpful to hold still, but if you start to feel like you need to move, if there's pain or discomfort, feel free to do that. Most of the work that we do will be in the mind, so it's more important to be comfortable in your body. So with that, I'll sound the bell, and I'll start to guide us through the meditation practice. Follow the sound of the bell as it fades into silence. And let the silence be an invitation to turn your senses inward. And it really is a wonderful invitation, because by turning our senses inward, we can become aware of the stability and the solidity that we have within our own bodies. We become aware that the body and the breath is dependable. It is something that's reliable. And so it is helpful to turn the senses inward and just become present with all of that. The feeling of being here in your own body, the feeling of sitting, the feeling of laying down, the feeling of being present. Just let that awareness come to the forefront of your consciousness. And then, having established that awareness, let's bring it up to the top of the head and to the area of the scalp. And for a few moments, just open up your awareness to any physical sensations that you notice in your scalp. So physical sensations, as I often describe them, are things like temperature. You may notice that the room feels cool or warm. Or sometimes you might notice a temperature sensation that is more internal, inside the head or under the scalp, the feeling of warmth or coolness. Sometimes there is a sensation of air movement. You might feel that on the skin of the scalp or on your hair. And sometimes there are sensations on the surface of the skin, things like tickles or itches, sometimes just a pulsation. So there's really nothing that you need to feel or are supposed to feel. You're just opening up awareness to whatever is there, observing as you become aware, observing the sensations. Often they just fade away. They're replaced by other sensations. Those last for a moment and then they pass away. So we're staying with the sensations of the scalp. And then as we're looking at these sensations, if we notice any tension anywhere in the scalp, we can let the tension go. So noticing tension, just offer it a free passage to leave the body. No conditions, no strings attached. Tension, I let tension go. And then continue to observe the sensations. Now from the scalp, we will guide the awareness downward a bit. Guide it down into the forehead, into the temples, down through the eyebrows and into the eyes. See if you can actually feel that movement of awareness as you guide it through the body. And once again, look for physical sensations, temperature, air movement, tickles, itches, or other sensations on the surface of the skin. And then notice tension, if any is present. Oftentimes the forehead or the brow is furrowed. Sometimes there is tension in the temples themselves. Sometimes the eyebrows are raised a bit, or we might find that we're squinting the eyes. So anywhere we discover tension, we just meet it with release. Observing tension, we just let go. Let it leave the body, and then we continue to observe the sensations as they come and go. Now from the temples, we can guide the awareness downward. Feel it moving from the temples down into the ears. Observe the sensations. Let the tension go. You can just repeat that process as I guide us through the other parts of the body. Moving forward from the ears, through the cheekbones. Feel that awareness flowing into the face. Feel the awareness flowing from the eyes down through the nose, through the lips and mouth and chin. Noticing sensations. And as you observe the sensations, there's no need to get caught up in thoughts about them or evaluations. Try to just have the experience without the thoughts, without the extra ideas, and just feel. Just be with the sensations. Anytime you notice tension, just release it. Allow it to go. If you want to use the image of the butterfly, we talk about finding a butterfly that's maybe trapped inside the house. And if we notice that butterfly with great compassion and gentleness, we walk up and cup the butterfly. And we carry it outside gently. We release it into the trees, into the garden. There's no conditions. There's just compassion. There's just letting go. Release your own tension in the same way, and have that same sense of compassion, that same spirit of compassion and kindness for yourself. And now from the chin, we can guide the awareness downward, down through the throat and into the neck. It's helpful to observe the different parts. Again, the throat or the front part of the neck, and then moving awareness to the sides of the neck. Also the back. And wherever there is awareness of sensation, just as it occurs. Nothing is imagined. Nothing is added in terms of ideas. We're just present with the sensations, arising and passing. And if we discover tension in the neck, we let it go. And we continue to observe peacefully, attentively, and let the awareness flow from the neck downward into the shoulders, all the way through the shoulders, observing the sensations. Here in the shoulders, you might notice the sensation of contact between your shoulders and the chair or the floor. You might notice a sensation of contact between your skin and your clothing. Sometimes as you breathe, you'll feel that movement, that contact. And otherwise, there are the usual sensations of temperature and air movement, and the other sensations on the surface of the skin. Let the shoulders relax completely, and then guide the awareness into the upper arms, passing downward through the shoulders into the upper arms, and then feel the different parts one by one, starting with the biceps, going from the elbow joint all the way up to the underarm, and then rotating inward, feeling the inside part of the upper arm. And remember, your only task as we move through is just to notice the sensations that are there and let go of any tension you encounter. And then moving around to the back side of the upper arms, the triceps, all the way up and down, just observing and releasing, observing, moving around to the outside surface of the upper arms, noticing the sensations. And there's no extra thinking, just experience. And then you can allow the awareness to flow downward through the elbow joints. Feel it moving down through. Feel it moving through the forearms, working its way downward toward the wrists. You are focused on that movement of awareness, feeling the movement of awareness as it travels, noticing all of the sensations and letting the tension go, moving down into the wrists now, observing, letting go. Even if you're not noticing tension in a particular part of the body, let it go anyway. Just allow even deeper peace to take over your body. Move the awareness down into the hands and feel it flowing through the heels of the hands and the palms. And then moving around to the tops of the hands. You might feel it moving through the thumbs and the fingers now. All the sensations and letting the tension go. And then you can bring that awareness down into the tips of the fingers and the fingernails. Spend a few moments here with the fingernails, just observing, patiently observing. And sometimes you'll begin to become aware of a very subtle feeling of energy in the fingernails, or vibration, or pulsation. So we feel the fingernails. And then from here, we'll maintain a continuity of awareness as we move from the tips of the fingers up to the top of the chest. And we can move the awareness along the collarbones, and then feel it as it starts to move down through the chest, downward, all the way down to the base of the sternum, and then let it move outward through the rib cage. So you continue to guide this awareness, observe the sensations that are revealed, let the tension go in every part. Then you can move the awareness up into the underarms, and then allow it to flow downward softly through the sides of the body. Feel it moving down, down, all the way to the waist. Soothing awareness, moving through, releasing tension. From the waist, bring the awareness forward into the belly. And with awareness in the belly, focus on the sensations as the belly rises and falls with the breath. Focus on the sensations of expansion and contraction, again within the belly. And if you notice tension in the belly, which is so often present, just let that tension go. Let your belly be completely relaxed and free. Continue observing the sensations. And then we'll make another move. From the belly, we'll move around to the top of the back. We'll start at the base of the neck. And we're maintaining this continuity of awareness, this quality of knowing, without judgment and without thinking, just awareness. Starting at the base of the neck and back and moving downward through the shoulder blades, through the upper third of the back, observing the sensations. Sometimes people will discover sensations that are unpleasant or difficult in some parts of the body. If we encounter these difficult sensations, it can sometimes be hard not to think or to judge or to tell ourselves stories about the sensations. But one thing you can do is to allow additional spaciousness in your awareness, in your body. Allow this feeling of expansive awareness. And within that expansive awareness, you'll discover that difficult sensations can be there. But you do not need to react with aversion or disliking. You can simply be with the sensations as they are. Just allowing them to be, letting your awareness move through, letting the tension go. So it is this act of not judging, not taking on a lot of emotional energy in response to a sensation, that allows us to be at peace with it. So now from the upper back, we let the awareness flow downward through the middle part of the back. Feel it flowing. Use that same technique of expansive awareness. If there's discomfort or unpleasant sensations of any kind, and you'll find in that opening that you are able to release the tension, which helps you to allow more spaciousness around the sensations. And then feel as the awareness moves downward further into the lower back. Same process, just observing. Wherever awareness moves, there is a knowing of sensation, an objective knowing of sensation, and just an automatic, peaceful releasing of tension wherever it is found. Now from the lower back, we can let the awareness continue to move down. Feel it flowing and moving down into the sit bones. And here in the sit bones, we might feel the sensation of bearing the weight of our bodies. Moving awareness through the hips now, we feel sensations here. And then letting awareness continue to move through the pelvis, aware of the sensations, just letting go, remaining aware. And we can guide the awareness downward into the thighs now. We'll spend a little time with different parts of the thighs so that we can really observe, starting with the top surface, the upward facing surface of the thighs, from the tops all the way to the knee joints. Observe the sensations here. You might notice the sensation of your own hands resting on your thighs, if they are in that place. Rotating outward, we can observe the outward surface, the outward facing surface of the thighs, from tops all the way to the knees. And then rotating under to the bottom surface of the thighs, from the tops to the knees. Just observing those sensations, touch and contact, bearing weight, and then allowing the awareness to flow inward to the inside part of the thighs now, from the tops all the way down to the knees. Just observing, no extra thoughts, letting tension go. And then we can begin to guide the awareness down through the knee joints. Feel it moving through. This is another part of the body where many people experience discomfort. Work with the expansive awareness, just knowing that within your own consciousness, within your own awareness, you have infinite capacity to observe whatever is true in the present moment without reacting negatively, without creating aversion. Just let the awareness flow through, down now into the calves. Feel it flowing. Feel it moving through the shins. Moving downward slowly, down to the ankles, flowing through the ankles, very soothing, pleasant movement of awareness. From the ankles now down into the feet. Begin with the awareness focused just in the heels. Become aware of the sensations here. Really be interested in the sensations. Really be interested in what you experience here. Letting go of thoughts. Moving awareness through the soles of the feet now. Noticing temperature and air movement. Sometimes perspiration on the surface of the skin. Move around to the tops of the feet. Again, just awareness of sensation and a responding to all tension with letting go. Just release. Make this your very positive habit energy. Just let go. And then moving downward into the toes. And finally letting that awareness come to rest in the tips of the toes and the toenails. Observe here. Just be aware. patiently, attentively. Notice the sensations in the toenails, vibration, pulsation, energy. Now from the tips of the toes we'll move once again, so maintain the continuity of awareness as we move up to the top of the head. Once again to the scalp. Become aware of the sensations here. And now at your own pace, you can begin to guide your own awareness back down through your body. Focus momentarily on each part of the body as the awareness flows down, taking the time to notice the sensations and to let go of the tension. Continue to move and try to follow the path that we normally follow together, just so no part of the body is forgotten or left out. Working from head to toe. And if you move quickly, you can even go back to the top of the head and move again from head to toe, from head to toe. Notice the places in the body where tension has returned, where tension has cropped up. Maybe you just released it a few minutes ago and you discover that tension has returned to your jaws, or that your shoulders are shrugged again, or your belly is tight. So these are places where we hold tension habitually in many cases. And this could be true of any part of your body. Noticing these places where tension is again and again, we just let it go over and over. What we do is we respond to difficult situations throughout the day. From the time we get up all the way until we come here, we respond to things that stress us out by tensing up. And we respond to things that make us mad by tensing up. And we respond to things that are frightening by tensing up. And so the body does this as a habit over and over. And each time it does this, the tension we hold carries with it the echoes of the difficult emotions that caused them in the first place. So just by being aware and letting go again and again, we start to set ourselves free from those afflictive emotions. We feel more peaceful and balanced. So just work with that simple practice. And then when you're ready, you can bring your awareness up to the base of the nose. Let's focus awareness very attentively on the little patch of skin beneath the nostrils and above the upper lip. Focus your awareness here, and then you can begin to expand your awareness a bit to include the rings of the nostrils. So the little patch of skin and now the rings of the nostrils. And you can expand your awareness just a bit further to include the nasal passages. So now we have this triangular area of the nose, which is the focus of awareness. So with awareness focused here, we simply become aware of the movement of the breath. So as you breathe in, just be aware, breathing in. As you breathe out, just be aware, breathing out. And stay with that movement of the breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. And as you observe the respiration, try to stay with the full duration of each breath, staying with the in-breath from its start all the way until it slows and pauses. It reverses direction and then it becomes the out-breath. Try to stay with the full duration of the out-breath. Eventually it will slow and pause and become the next in-breath. So we're aware of the movement of respiration. We're aware of the full duration of each inhalation and each exhalation. So within that awareness of the breath, become aware of the feeling of touch. Anywhere in the triangular area of the nose, there is the feeling of touch as the breath moves in and out. The movement of the breath and the feeling of touch. Be fully aware, be attentive, following the movement and the touch of the breath. As you observe the touch of the breath, you may become aware of more subtle sensations. As we breathe in, there is sometimes a feeling of coolness to the air. And as we breathe out, comparatively, a feeling of warmth. And as we breathe in, a feeling of dryness. And as we breathe out, a feeling comparatively of moisture. So stay with the movement of the breath and the touch of the breath and the sensations of the breath. Just stay with it. This is the focus of our meditation. Focus on the breath. Sometimes distractions will come up as we're focusing on the breath. We'll find awareness moving away. Sometimes to sounds in the building or outside. If you notice yourself distracted by a sound, find the easiest thing to do is to simply let go and return your awareness back to your own breath. Just let go. Return to the breath. Sometimes distractions will come up as physical sensations in the body. You might feel a little fatigue, or maybe an itch somewhere. This distracts the mind, pulls it away from the breath. In that moment of awareness, however, we can bring the awareness back to the breath. Re-establish mindfulness of the movement of the breath and the touch of the breath and the sensations of the breath. And just doing this over and over, staying with it. Sometimes the mind will begin to move into thoughts, images, memories. If you notice this, that moment of observation is a wonderful moment. It gives you the opportunity to guide the awareness back to the breath, re-establish awareness of the movement of the breath and the touch and the sensations. Just do that over and over. Whatever the distraction is, just go back to the breath. And if you react with negativity to a distraction, you'll find that this disturbs your equanimity. If you react by letting go, you'll find it restores balance and equanimity in your body and your mind. And let's just share a few minutes together in silence, practicing this way. Remain with the breath. And in just a few minutes, I'll sound the bell to end the meditation practice. Go ahead and take a minute to come out of meditation. Come back to the room. Come back gently. Feel free to move around or stand or stretch or walk or whatever you need to do. There is tea in the kitchen if anybody's interested. If you do go for tea, I would just ask you to try and come back quickly so we can move on to the teaching. And I think there's still a pretty good supply of that chocolate mint tea in there. It's also possible to stay with the sensations of the body as you come out of the formal meditation practice. And that can be a way of continuing with the type of meditation, as you move beyond the cushion, or if you move beyond the chair, possible to just stay mindful of the sensations in the body. And oftentimes as we do this, there's a recognition that the sensations in the body are often quite pleasant. Even the sensations that we would sometimes not pay attention to or just think that are neutral, but there are pleasant sensations in the body. So being aware of these is helpful. You can also stay with the breath, gently with the breath. Sometimes I'll use that as a practice tool when I mow the lawn or when I'm doing work around the meditation center. I will try to stay with my breath at all times. And of course, you don't stay with it at all times. You move away, but bringing it back over and over does help with the concentration and the focus in the mind. So, we've all worked to create this wonderful peacefulness and equanimity. I have a handout for tonight. We concluded our stuff from last week. Would somebody mind
I'll get it.
volunteering? Thank you so
I
much.
was a teacher too.
What's that?
Yeah, I was a teacher too.
Oh, wonderful. Teachers just know how to do it.
Wow.
Is this from last week, did you say?
Nope, this is a new one this week.
Okay,
Yeah.
you said something about last week.
I said we concluded kind of the subject matter that we were on from last week.
And I
So.
think you have some from last week out there, so I can pick some up.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're ever wondering, on the bottom left-hand corner of the handouts, that's the date. So it's 2017 0808.
Perfect.
Yeah, so if you're ever kind of wondering what the chronological order is, that's what that is. And that date format is a little bit of a relic from my corporate time. It's that was sort of the I think that was ISO 9000 compliant date date format. So yeah. All right. Well, over the last few weeks, we have been talking about the 10 perfections, or the 10 paramis, or sometimes it's pronounced the 10 paramitas, depending on whether it's Pali or Sanskrit. But really, these 10 perfections are aspects of our character that are already present, but by becoming aware of them, we can cultivate them into prominence, and they become qualities that actually perfect us as human beings. And so there's the list of the 10 perfections, and so I'll just read the English of each of them just to review. First is the perfection of giving, or generosity. Next is the perfection of virtue, or ethical conduct. Next is the perfection of renunciation, so the willingness to let go of attachments and the willingness to let go of those things that maybe we kind of want to hang on to but we know aren't so good for us. Then there is the perfection of discerning wisdom. And this is this ability to be mindful of what's going on in the body and the mind in kind of a gentle way, but just sort of monitoring what's happening. And as different thoughts and emotions and reactions come up, our discerning wisdom will help us navigate through those. What is skillful? What is not skillful? What should I let go of? What should I pursue in a wholesome way? And then tonight, we'll talk about Viriya Parami, which is the perfection of energy. And sometimes I like to call that the perfection of energetic effort. And this is a really simple one to understand and comprehend, but I think it's really helpful too. It's a very powerful one. I guess you could say it's really user-friendly, but this one is just so basic, so practical, that it's often overlooked, but it's just very helpful. So this fifth perfection, Viriya Parami, the perfection of energetic effort. If you look at the Pali word Viriya in the dictionary, there is that component of effort, that component of energy applied to the effort, and then there's, in some of the translations, there's kind of this element of heroic effort. So this is an effort that transcends just sort of the normal type of effort we might normally make. The heroic part of this effort is the part of the effort that transforms us out of the suffering that we so often experience into a feeling of peacefulness and happiness. So that's the value of this energetic effort. As a lot of these, or actually as all of these perfections are listed in the canon, they talk about the perfection before and after and how they interact. So this energetic effort, Viriya, is perfected by the previous parami, which is panya, wisdom. So when we cultivate discerning wisdom, we're able to see, where should I focus my energy? Where should I withdraw my energy? Discerning wisdom in that way, panya perfects the Viriya, and panya itself is purified by the Viriya, because then we are using our wisdom to focus energy, withhold energy, and so we're creating this cycle of improvement. Viriya dispels the hindrances, and remember there's three main kilesas, which are greed, ill will, and delusion. But then there are the 5 hindrances. And so of the 5 hindrances, Viriya dispels the hindrances of sloth and torpor. So physical sloth and mental torpor. And a lot of times that manifests in us as sort of a defeatist attitude. That we can do this practice here, and we might feel benefit meditating here in the group. We might feel benefit by listening to the talks. But then we get home, and sometimes it's hard to get ourselves to meditate there. Or it's hard to convince ourselves that this is really something that's worth doing. Is it really going to transform the way that I feel? And so this energetic effort is important because it dispels that hindrance. It helps us to get rid of that sloth, that just sort of, that physical, I just want to lay here, I just want to stay in bed. Very common amongst those of us who've suffered from depression. It's pretty easy to just want to stay there and not move. And then torpor, which is more the mental aspect of it, just not wanting to have to direct the mind. It is a really simple thing to sit and meditate, but during the meditation practice, we're doing something with the mind at all times. And that requires effort, and it requires energy. And so there can be a tendency to just sort of, again, that I don't want to have to work that hard. I don't want to do it. I'd rather lay here let my mind go wherever it wants to go. And of course, in the practice, we call that the monkey mind, which is just swinging from branch to branch like a monkey, or swinging from thought to thought, idea to idea, scary thing to thing that makes us angry. You know how the mind works for all of us. That's what it does. When the mind is left alone, it becomes the monkey mind, swings around, and then we experience something called papancha, which is mental proliferation. So the mind might move to something, oh boy, I know that I have this deadline coming up and I'm kind of, I'm stressed about that and it's going to bother me. And so the mind is thinking about that, and then in the next second the mind is thinking about some person that maybe you have cross relations with, and then a few moments later the mind is thinking about something that you want to do. And so this is the papancha, mental proliferation. The mind will just sort of build one thing upon the next and upon the next. So it's important to be aware of this habit of the mind, this tendency of the mind. Everybody experiences it, but the thing we can do to work with that is to work with this perfection of Viriya. So this perfection of energetic effort. You can just think of it that way, energetic effort. So going back to the text here, the bottom paragraph on page 1, Viriya means that we should channel energetic effort into our spiritual practice just as we would for any other important aspect of life. So if you think about it, we are constantly channeling our energy and effort into our hobbies, things that we like to do, gardening, sewing, whatever it is. We channel that energy and effort into exercise. We channel it into our work. We channel it into our relationships with partners or with children or grandkids or friends. So if you think about those things that we are always pretty willing to channel this energetic effort into, we also need to be willing to channel our energetic effort into our practice. And we need to work with the practice in this way in order to make progress, to change those habit patterns in the mind. The good thing about this is that the payoff is really immediate and it's profound. So an example would be meditation practice, all of us doing it together. Most of the folks that come and do meditation feel pretty good afterwards. You feel pretty relaxed, pretty calm, pretty balanced, pretty centered. You may feel like you could handle something that is normally a little stressful, and maybe you could deal with it a little more gracefully or without getting too bent out of shape. So this is just an example of something that we get as an immediate benefit from meditation practice. But when we expand this practice a little further, this Viriya to the other aspects of the practice, we get even more benefit. So it's super helpful. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is it's worth the effort. If you remember, that's part of mindfulness, is just to simply remember to do the practices. So when you remember, you channel some of this energetic effort into the practice in the right way, and you'll start to see the benefits immediately. You'll feel better. It will start to help. So the question is, okay, what do we need to channel that effort into, that energetic effort, and how will it help? So that's what we get to next, the 4 types of right effort. But before I go into this, anybody have any questions? Anybody not quite sure? Anybody have any comments so far? All right, so in the Pali Canon, the teachings on the Dhamma, there is a lot of detail on what are called the 4 types of right effort. And in some ways, these are going to seem really simplistic, sometimes almost childlike. But these are incredibly simple, but they're incredibly powerful. So the 4 types of right effort. So these are the 4 ways we can use this Viriya, this energetic effort. The first type of right effort is to prevent the arising of any unwholesome or unskillful states of consciousness that haven't yet arisen. Now what I want to do is jump a little bit, because I came up with a little simile, and it's on page 4. And I kind of want to jump to that, because I think this might be helpful as we talk about this. As I think about it, kind of the image of a gatekeeper comes in mind, sort of in medieval times. Maybe you have a village that's walled off for protection, and then there's this great gate that enters the village, and there is someone there that's a gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper is responsible for checking to see who's coming, who wants to come in, deciding whether they should be allowed into the city or not. And so in terms of those 4 right efforts, I think this gatekeeper type of metaphor can be really helpful. So if you're just aware of what's going on in your mind in a general way, so this is just the general mindfulness that we try to cultivate. It's not an uptight or oppressive type of awareness, but this is just more, oh yeah, I'm aware that I'm a little stressed right now. I'm aware that I'm joyful right now. I'm aware that I'm kind of neutral right now. So there's just sort of this gentle, basic awareness of your states of consciousness, how you feel at any given time. So that's kind of the gatekeeper role. Here's the gatekeeper. So this, your awareness, your mindful awareness, or we could call it the wisdom mind. Sometimes that's what we refer to it as. And the wisdom mind is as opposed to the reactive mind, which is the part of us that doesn't react skillfully to things, but just kind of blows up when stuff happens that makes us mad, or that makes us get obsessed about stuff that's scary in our lives, and we think about it over and over and we can't let it go. That's the reactive mind. It's part of us, but we also have this wisdom mind, which is one of our perfections that we cultivate. So the gatekeeper is this wisdom mind. So this is this part of you that is generally aware of your states of consciousness, your moods, your feelings, what's going on. And so when different states of consciousness approach and they want to have access to the village, they want to be let through, you have to decide if that's someone you want occupying the village, right? Or in this case, your own mind, your own consciousness. So going back to that first type of right effort, it is the effort to prevent the arising of any unwholesome or unskillful states of consciousness that haven't yet arisen. And then in parentheses there I have unwholesome or unskillful states of consciousness are typically defined as those based in greed, ill will, and delusion. So they're any one of a number of offshoots of those, but they always kind of come back to these 3: greed, ill will, and delusion. So if you are the gatekeeper, you're mindfully aware, and you become aware that, hey, here comes this, I'm starting to think about a conversation that I had with somebody some time ago, and I'm sort of thinking how I'd react right now if I had that conversation again. Right? So here's a case of an unwholesome state of consciousness that has not yet arisen, and you are going to prevent it from arising simply through mindfulness. You're just aware. Oh yeah, there comes that, that thinking that I do. So you're not beating yourself up about it or saying, well, there I go again. I'm so bad at this, or, I always do this. No, this is great because you notice, the awareness. This is wonderful. So in a way, you should give yourself a pat on the back. So it's like the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper's job is to be aware. And so at this point, the gatekeeper has noticed, oh yeah, there I am. I'm thinking about that thing, that argument that I had with this person, or this disagreement that I had with my sister, or with my partner, or whoever. So at some point you become aware of this, and then you're going to use this energetic effort to simply say, no, I'm sorry, you're not allowed in. You don't get to come through the gate. You have this ability to choose. So let's say that this person turns around, walks away for a while, and then they come back. Well, then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to notice, here it comes again. Right now I'm not feeling particularly stressed or upset, but if I think about that conversation again, I know I will be. So it's just this very simple process. Being aware, knowing this is something that wants to come into my consciousness, and it's going to leave me feeling upset or angry or greedy or full of animosity or ill will, any of those kinds of things. So it's just this awareness. So we have states, unwholesome states of consciousness that aren't present, that we know sometimes we're angry, sometimes we're fearful, sometimes we're greedy, any of these things. But right now, maybe greed is not present. That's great. You're aware of that, and you're not going to allow greed to come into your consciousness. So that's the first type of right effort. The second type of right effort is to abandon any unwholesome states of consciousness that have already arisen. So the first phase, the gatekeeper is there, keeping a close watch on who's coming, preventing the thieves from coming in, preventing the violent people from coming in, preventing the troublemakers. So in this context, it's preventing any of those thoughts or states of consciousness or papancha, these episodes of mental proliferation that cause us so much suffering. So that the gatekeeper is doing their job, preventing those from coming in that are not yet in. But sometimes some might sneak in, or sometimes some might get in there and change. And so at some point, the gatekeeper notices, okay, there's some unwholesome states of consciousness that have arisen, that are in the village. They have made it in. And so once again, this is not a time where you say, oh, doggone it, I've screwed up again, and there I go, not doing this right. No. The job is to simply notice. So when you notice, then you can do something about it. So each time you notice, that's great. That's great. It's never a time to be down on yourself for it. So the gatekeeper notices that, hey, I'm walking around here and I feel a little angry today. The gatekeeper's job then is to escort the angry person out, or to escort, the violent person out, or to escort the greedy person out. So again, imagine that this is this village and it's kind of a utopian setting, and that you have the ability to allow just, all of these wonderful characters to be present, or these wonderful qualities to be present. So the gatekeeper becomes aware of any of these unwholesome states of consciousness. Greed, ill will, and delusion are the roots, and all these others sprout from it. And any of these that you become aware of, you're simply saying, these are not welcome. I will abandon these states. So oftentimes then the question is, how do I do that? How do I abandon them? The first thing to do is to simply say, this is not how I want to feel. I would like to have this leave my consciousness. So to actually be aware of what states have penetrated your consciousness, and then just make that intention. I want this out. Not in an uptight way, not where you're getting freaked out about it, but just saying, this is something I don't want in here. This is something that's not helpful. This is not an individual or a character that's going to be helpful in my village. I don't need this here, so I want this out. If you find that they still persist, then we move into the third type, which is the third type of right effort is to cultivate wholesome states of consciousness that have not yet arisen. And so by the time we get to this will start to sound really familiar. Because what are the four most wholesome states of consciousness according to the Dhamma teachings? Well, they are compassion, they are loving kindness, they are appreciative joy, and they are equanimity. These are states of consciousness that in their pure state, there is no downside to them. There is no negativity to them. They are perfect in their essence. And so sometimes we need to bring in some wholesome states of consciousness. So again, back to the gatekeeper idea, well, maybe we need some good doctors, maybe we need some good nurses, some good caregivers, maybe we need some love, maybe we need some kindness, maybe we need some joy. So these are states of consciousness that we would like to invite in and to cultivate. And in parentheses again, wholesome states of consciousness are those based in generosity, virtue, and mindfulness. So those four Brahma Viharas that we talk about, compassion is really virtue with some generosity in there. It does require mindfulness. Loving kindness is generosity and virtue. It does require mindfulness. Appreciative joy, there's a virtue to that. There's actually a generosity to that because we're witnessing other people getting, receiving, doing things that make them joyful, and we're not feeling greedy for what they have. So there's a generosity spirit to it as well as mindfulness. And then equanimity. With equanimity, very much mindfulness, very much virtue. So those are all offshoots of that. But again, the third type of right effort is to cultivate those wholesome states of consciousness that have not yet arisen. So, a couple of examples on how we can cultivate that. So just right now, we're not going to do this formally, but if you want to close your eyes, it might help. So again, one of the ways that I describe compassion, each one of us in here has had some really difficult experiences in our life. Real trauma, real sadness, real fear. Lots of very difficult stuff. And sometimes, we can't see that there's any good side to those experiences. But one good side that there always is to those experiences is that they open us up to a type of compassion and a connection to other beings that would have been otherwise impossible for us, right? So, there's been times in my life where I've been fairly well off, and there's been times in my life where I've had trouble paying for food. And the trouble paying for food, that opens my heart up to a compassion for other people who might be struggling to pay for food, and it changes my relationship to them. It changes my relationship to the world. So every type of suffering that you have experienced, while it's suffering and it's painful and it's in some cases very tragic, again, it opens you up to this ability to be compassionate to others in a way that you just wouldn't have had real access to before. When you've experienced the same thing somebody else has, boy, you're there. And that is precious, because the most wonderful thing we can do is to be compassionate to others and to help them in their times of difficulty, when they're suffering, right? And so we know, we have this firsthand experience of how difficult and how traumatic this is, and how we just wish to be free from suffering in our own lives. And so we can look at others and say, they too feel just that same way. And then that helps us to let go of some of our judgmentalism. You know, sometimes we'll look at people and we'll say, well, you know what, they did so many dumb things. It's kind of they have themselves to blame for their own suffering. Well, okay, you can maybe make that argument, but you know, that's true of us too, in many cases. Not all cases, but in many cases it's true. We've done dumb things. We've made poor decisions. We still deserve to be happy and to be well. So again, there's this compassion. It comes up by being aware of our own suffering, by being able to project that to the experiences of other people, and to just have this unbearable compassion, this openness to them. And then this also leads us to the next one, which is this loving kindness. And we talk about this over and over, but it's so important because this loving kindness softens the edges within us that would normally be edges of anger or ill will or hatred. And any of you who have ever experienced those feelings know how painful that is inside of you. You might hate someone who deserves to be hated in your mind. But where does that hate get experienced? It gets experienced in your own heart, right? So loving kindness has this amazing ability to transform. That we are able to offer love and kindness to people that it's easy to offer it to. Kids, our family, loved ones, grandkids, partners, friends, you know, like this. But then we can also start to think, you know, other beings need loving kindness as well. And so maybe I can soften my heart a little bit. Maybe I can't love the person that hurt me, but maybe I can withdraw some of the energy from the hatred that I normally feel for them. Maybe I can just withdraw a little of that, 10%. You know, then that's 10% better. So that's the loving kindness. Appreciative joy. Here's one that's so wonderful because it's almost like you're searching for little gems or agates on the beach and you stumble across them and it's like, oh, look what I found. And so there's all these different experiences that we can find if we're paying attention. I'll hear sometimes when the windows are open, I'll just hear the kids over at the neighbors playing, you know, laughing, shouting, you know, whatever games they're playing, right? Now that's not my experience, but that's going on there. And so I take those little moments as, hey, there's a moment of joyfulness, you know? Or I'll see a couple sometimes walking down the street holding hands. And it's like, okay, that's not me holding hands with my loved one, but I see that and I just take that on as there's joy happening right there. Someone is experiencing joy and I see that. Or just little comments between people in the supermarket. Or I'll just see the gentle touch of, you know, maybe there's an older couple and, you know, just somebody puts their hand on the other person. So it's not happening to me, but I'm witnessing this. I'm experiencing this. And so this is this quality of appreciative joy. It's like a never-ending source of joyfulness and happiness. But again, it requires us to sort of let go of the greediness because, you know, what's on the other side of that? It's like, well, I want to have my own partner treat me that way, or I want to have my own experience of that kind of intimacy or love or whatever it is. And so we start to generate that, well, then that kind of dissipates this appreciative joy. So appreciative joy, so easy to cultivate. It's easy to notice when things get in the way. And then equanimity is the fourth. And this one Sometimes it's easiest for people to just understand it as a feeling of peacefulness and as a feeling of freedom, which is accurate. But what is leading to the peacefulness, and what is leading to the freedom? Well, a lack of conflict in the mind is what's leading to it. A lack of conflict in the mind. So where do we get a lack of conflict in the mind? We get it from non-attachment, right? So when we become aware of our attachments, hey, there's me, I want things to be a certain way. If they aren't a certain way, I'm going to be upset. We can look at that. And is it possible to say, well, let me do my very best to make this work out good, and then I let go? You know, if it doesn't work out perfectly, well, I'm not bent out of shape because I did the best I could. I did what I could. Letting go of attachment. Letting go of some of the unrealistic expectations that we have for ourselves that we can't meet. Like, I am going to be so strict on my diet, and I'm going to lose X number of pounds by such and such a day, and I'm going to fit into my smaller pants and all that. And you know what? That's kind of a recipe for suffering, because we've gotten really attached to these ideas. Is it possible to say, you know what, I'm going to eat healthy because I deserve to be healthy, so I'm going to do my best with my diet. But I'm also a human being who has fun eating cookies sometimes or eating ice cream, and so I'm going to allow myself those little pleasures too without beating the heck out of myself for having them, right? So again, experiencing life, aware of the attachments as they come up, the clinging, the craving, the aversion. These are all, clinging, craving, aversion, they're all the same thing. They're just different manifestations of the same thing. So this equanimity, so powerful, so important. So these are really the fourth type of right effort, is to strive to maintain, actually it's the third, this is what we're cultivating, and then we move into the fourth, which is to strive to maintain and even to improve those wholesome states of consciousness, right? So this is something that when we notice that they're present, we can improve on them. We can make them even stronger. And we can do that in just the simplest ways. A friendly comment to somebody, a smile to a stranger, holding a door open for somebody when you're walking into a building. And it's amazing how that can open up and just lead you to other wonderful things. So, and then in kind of a summary, in a more general sense, right effort is the effort to avoid and abandon things like wrong speech and wrong action. And then if you remember, we have the Eightfold Path, and so it is to avoid the wrong version of all the things on the Eightfold Path, which include livelihood, mindfulness, concentration or meditation, view, the way we see the world and those around us, our intentions or thoughts. And then we simultaneously cultivate right speech. So if I speak to somebody about something, maybe there's a way I can say, hey, there's a positive thing that we can do over here, rather than saying, this is just hopeless and horrible and these people are bad and evil and not worth our time. You know what I mean? There's two ways of looking at that. Is there something positive and proactive I can do, as opposed to something that's just going to be negative and pull people down? So right speech, right action, doing things that are virtuous and helpful, right livelihood. It just means that since many of us spend so much of our time focused on our livelihood, because we have to, right? A certain number of hours a day. Some of us are retired, but livelihood is such an important thing. well, then the way we interact with others in our livelihood, that's incredibly important. So sometimes we think this just means, well, you should be a missionary, or you should be like Mother Teresa, or you should, just go around helping poor people. That would be wonderful. But so much of this just means, when you're working with other people, there's a way to do that virtuously. There's a way to do that where you're cultivating harmony and peacefulness at work and not creating an unpleasant, stressful place to work. Then there is right mindfulness and the right way we meditate, which leads to the right view, which is really what we've been talking about here, and then right intention, which is our desire to take action in that direction. We're right at the end of our time already. It seemed to go really fast tonight. Anybody have anything though before we finish up? Thoughts or questions? Any ways that maybe this is just really hitting home for you?
Which is kind of funny, because a couple weeks ago, I think Elaine brought up something about bad thoughts in your mind or something, that kind of the self-talk. And right after that, I heard this saying, and it said, which is weird because it's kind of like this, but you wouldn't invite a thief into your house. So why do you let thoughts come into your mind that rob you of joy?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of the same thing like the gatekeeper. A lot of this has to do with treating other people, but it really is about how we treat ourselves.
Yeah.
And those thoughts that we can have where you can kind of go over stuff and it's just, stop.
Yeah.
Just check at the gate, you're out.
Right.
It's like, because it doesn't do anything good. And
Right.
you have to have mercy and compassion for yourself too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so try the simple experiment. So many of us are just sort of convinced that thoughts are going to come and go, and we really don't have anything to say about it. Good thoughts will come, bad thoughts will come, and because we believe that's the way it's going to be, that's how it goes. But if you try this little gatekeeper technique where you're just, oh yeah, I'm feeling pretty good right now, and here comes the negative self-talk. Here comes the self-hate or the dialogue over and over about what if the worst thing happens, Well, in that moment of noticing that, say, I have the ability to choose what it is I think about, and I'm not going to allow this into my consciousness. And a lot of times just that simple effort will make a big difference. And then if it doesn't seem to want to cooperate, then that's when you can go into one of the 4 Brahma-viharas and start to cultivate that. Let me think about something where I can cultivate appreciative joy, or compassion, or love, or equanimity. So, thank you for that, Joni. Well, we really are at the end of our time, and since we spent that time with our 4 Brahma-viharas, I'll just say it kind of briefly as we close. May all beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all beings be surrounded by love and kindness. May all beings be joyful and happy. And may all beings be equanimous, and free, and peaceful. And may you who are here, thank you so much. I love to see your feet on this wooden floor and to have you here sharing this wonderful space. So thank you so much. Namaskar, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
I just saw her too, something on Facebook about this speaker.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if that speaker will be maybe recorded and posted somewhere? I wouldn't be surprised.
Some,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not that big.
I saw it also